The night of my 18th birthday should have been the most beautiful of my life. Instead, it was the night everything I thought I knew about love, destiny, and myself began to crumble. I still remember the scent of pine and damp earth clinging to the air, the way the moonlight spilled silver across the forest clearing where our pack gathered. The wolves had already begun their howls, a chorus that made my skin prickle with both fear and longing. Tonight was the night I would discover my mate, the one fate had chosen for me. The bond written into my blood since the moment I drew breath. I should have been excited. My hands should have been trembling with anticipation, my heart pounding with the thrill of it all. But as I stood at the edge of the circle, watching the firelight flicker against the faces of my pack, unease knotted my stomach. Something had been wrong for weeks. It started with the dreams. They were strange. Tangled things, shadows moving through the trees. A wolf with eyes so dark they swallowed the stars. Whispers I couldn't quite catch but felt deep in my bones. Sometimes I woke drenched in sweat, gasping, the sound of a growl still echoing in my ears. Other times I woke with tears streaming down my face, though I couldn't say why. I had told no one. Not my mother, not my closest friend, not even Luca. Especially not Luca. Even thinking his name was enough to send a flutter through my chest. He was everything a girl like me could want, tall, strong, with a smile that seemed to promise warmth even on the coldest nights. We had grown up together, chasing each other through the meadows, sharing secrets under the old oak tree by the river. Everyone whispered that it would be him, that when the moon revealed the truth, Luca and I would be bound for life. And I believed it. I wanted to believe it. So why did the dreams feel like warnings? I drew my shawl tighter around my shoulders as the alpha called for silence. His voice rolled across the clearing, low and commanding, demanding attention without needing to raise it. Tonight, fate will speak, he said. Tonight, the bonds of our blood will be revealed. The crowd stirred, excitement buzzing like static in the air. My palms dampened, my breath quickening. I searched the faces across the circle, and there Luca. His dark hair fell across his forehead, his jaw set in that confident way that had always made me trust him. He caught my gaze and smiled. Just a flicker. But it was enough. My heart leapt. Yes, it would be him. It had to be. The moon broke free from the clouds then, flooding the clearing with light. A shiver ran through me as warmth spread across my chest, down my arms, into my fingertips. The bond, the call of destiny. I staggered forward, every nerve in my body pulling me toward the one I was meant for. And I wasn't wrong. The bond led me straight to Luca. Our eyes locked, and for a heartbeat, I saw it in his gaze, the spark, the recognition. My soul surged in relief. It was him. Always him. But then, his face changed. The spark vanished, replaced by something cold, hard, unyielding. His jaw clenched, his lips thinning as if he had tasted something bitter. I don't want you, he said. The words didn't make sense. They couldn't. My ears rang, my heart stumbled, my knees nearly buckled beneath me. What? My voice was barely a whisper, broken, but I needed to hear him say it again. Needed to know I hadn't imagined it. His eyes were like ice, piercing and merciless. I reject you. It was as if claws had raked across my chest, tearing me open from the inside. The bond I had waited for, prayed for, shattered in a single breath. Pain flooded me, sharp and merciless, like fire licking through my veins. Around us, the pack gasped, their shock as palpable as the night air. I wanted to scream. I wanted to beg. I wanted to fall into the earth and never rise again. But Luca turned his back on me. Just like that, as though I were nothing, as though fate itself meant less than the weight of his own pride. The fire cracked. The forest seemed to hold its breath. And in that silence, I felt it. A presence. It moved at the edge of the clearing, darker than the shadows, heavier than the night. My head turned before I could stop it, my eyes drawn to the tree line where the firelight did not reach. He was there, watching. Alpha. I had always thought of him as distant, untouchable, a figure carved from steel and power. But now, as his gaze pinned me from across the circle, I felt something far more dangerous. His eyes were black pools, unfathomable, and they saw straight through me, through the pain, the shame, the ruin. My heart stumbled again, but this time it wasn't from heartbreak. It was from fear, from something deeper, something nameless. And though he didn't move, though he didn't speak a word, I knew in that instant that my story wasn't ending here, in rejection. It was just beginning. Because the Alpha's eyes told me one chilling truth. He would not let me go. For days after the rejection, I moved through my life as if underwater sound muffled, air heavy, every movement slow and painful. The bond was broken, yet its ghost clung to me. I felt Luca's absence like a bruise pressed deep beneath my ribs, throbbing whenever I caught sight of him across the village, or heard his laugh in the distance. He avoided me now, slipping out of rooms the moment I entered, his shoulders rigid with shame or stubbornness. Couldn't tell which, but it wasn't just Luca. It was everyone. The whispers followed me wherever I went. She was rejected. Did you see her face when he said it? Poor thing. Fate turned its back on her. Some voices carried pity, others cruel satisfaction, but all of them cut into me just the same. In our world, rejection was rare. To be denied by a fated mate was almost unthinkable. It marked you not just as unwanted, but as broken. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself I could survive it. But when I walked through the marketplace and saw mothers tug their daughters closer, or when warriors glanced at me and shook their heads, I felt the fragile edges of my soul begin to crack. And then there were the dreams. They came sharper now, heavier. I no longer saw faceless shadows. Instead, I saw him, the Alpha. His eyes glowed like burning coals in the dark, his wolf prowling closer with each passing night. Sometimes he was a man, towering, silent, watching me with a gaze that both terrified and thrilled. Sometimes he was a beast, his black wolf circling me with a low growl that sounded more like a promise than a threat. I would wake with my skin damp, my heart racing, his presence lingering as though he had truly been there. I wanted to dismiss it as grief, as my broken bond twisting my mind. But the unease followed me into the day. One afternoon, I went to the river to clear my head. The water usually soothed me, its steady rush reminding me that life flowed on no matter what storms we endured. I knelt on the bank, let the cold water wash over my hands, and tried to breathe. That's when I felt it, the prickling sensation of being watched. I looked up. Across the water, deep in the trees, something moved. A shadow. A flicker of movement too large to be an animal. My breath caught. Hello. My voice wavered. No answer. But the shadow did not retreat. Could swear 2 eyes glimmered from the darkness before vanishing. I stumbled back, my pulse thundering in my ears. Wolves sometimes roamed the woods, but this was different. This was deliberate. Someone had been there, watching. That night, the pack held a small gathering in the great hall. A feast meant to celebrate the new season, though for me it was another trial. Every glance, every whisper, pressed against me until I wished I could vanish into the stone walls. And then he arrived. The Alpha. He filled the hall with his presence alone. Conversation faltered as he strode in, his dark hair brushing his collar, his eyes sweeping across the room like a blade. People bowed their heads, but not me. I couldn't move. Because his gaze locked onto mine not only for a moment, but it was enough to unravel me. Heat prickled my skin, and my chest tightened as though invisible fingers had wrapped around my lungs. He didn't speak to me. He didn't need to. His eyes said everything. I see you. I know what you are. You are not forgotten. I lowered my gaze quickly, but the feeling lingered long after he moved to his place at the head of the hall. Whispers stirred again. Why does he look at her that way? Is she? No, impossible. I tried to ignore them, but deep down, I already knew the truth. The Alpha's gaze wasn't chance. Something tied me to him now, invisible and heavy. A pull as undeniable as the bond I had once shared with Luca. And that terrified me more than anything. After the gathering, I slipped away before anyone could stop me. The night was cool, the moon half hidden behind clouds, and I hurried along the dirt path toward home. But halfway there, the air shifted. The wind carried a scent wood smoke and pine, but beneath it, something darker, sharper. My wolf stirred uneasily, her hackles rising. I froze. Footsteps. Behind me. Slow, deliberate, matching my pace. I quickened, my heart hammering, but the steps followed Dot when I finally spun around. The path was empty. Nothing but trees swaying in the wind, their branches creaking like old bones. I forced myself to breathe, to keep moving, but every instinct screamed that I wasn't alone. And when I reached my door and slipped inside, bolting it behind me, I swore I heard it faint. Carried on the night air, a growl. Low, possessive. Not of warning, of claim, and in that moment, I knew the ripples of unease were only the beginning. Something far darker had been set into motion the night I was rejected. I felt a shiver run down my spine, but the fear was tempered by something else. A strange calm, born of the bond we had reforged in the shadows. I knew we were stronger together, stronger than I had ever believed possible, and yet, the enemies' gaze swept over us, and I felt the weight of centuries, of unfinished vendettas, of dark forces waiting to claim what was theirs. The rival moved closer, fluid, predator-like. Its voice was a hiss in the air, ancient and cutting. You cannot hide, it said. The bloodline calls to me. I will take what is mine. The words struck like a dagger. My bloodline. My destiny. The truth I had feared all along. The Alpha stepped in front of me, claws flexing, teeth bared. Not while I'm here, he growled. I never doubted that, I said quietly, though my hands trembled. I could feel my wolf stirring beneath my skin, sensing the danger. Hungry to protect, to fight. The enemy struck with inhuman speed, lunging at us both. The Alpha intercepted, and I barely had time to react. The clash of powers, the roar of beasts, the smell of ozone and blood filled the clearing. I wanted to run, to hide, but my wolf wouldn't allow it. I stepped forward, heart hammering, instincts sharp. This was no longer about fear. This was survival, about defending the bond we had fought so hard to reclaim. I could feel the pull between the Alpha and me, even in the chaos, our emotions intertwining, our hearts sinking. Every glance, every touch, every movement was instinctive. Unspoken. The enemy snarled, powerful and relentless. But we were more than prey. We were a pack united by blood, bond, and destiny. The rivals circled us, calculating, testing, probing for weakness. My hands glowed faintly with the energy of my lineage, a force I had barely begun to understand. The Alpha's eyes flicked to mine. Now, he growled. I nodded, stepping into the enemy's path, the bloodline's power coursing through me. My fear was still there, but it was sharpened into focus. into determination. I would not falter. I could not falter. The battle began in earnest. Claws, teeth, and supernatural force clashed under the moonlight. I felt every strike, every rush of power, every near miss. My wolf urged ferocity. My heart demanded control. And through it all, the alpha fought beside me. Not just a protector, but a partner, a mate, a force intertwined with my own destiny. We moved as one, each strike coordinated, each reaction instinctive. Every heartbeat reminded me why we were bound together by fate, by blood, by something greater than fear or danger. The enemy roared, a sound that rattled the earth and chilled the soul. It lunged again, faster, stronger. I felt its claws graze my arm, pain flaring, but the alpha was immediately at my side, shielding me, pushing me forward, guiding me. We countered, striking with precision. The enemy faltered once, twice, and I realized then the truth of our strength. Together, we were unstoppable. But even as hope surged, I knew the greatest trial was still ahead. A low growl from behind made me spin. The enemy had more tricks, more power than I anticipated. It was cunning, relentless, and terrifyingly intelligent. It was not defeated yet. The forest seemed to shrink around us, the shadows pressing close, suffocating. I felt the weight of the prophecy, the bloodline, the destiny pressing down on my shoulders. And I realized what came next would demand everything from me, my strength, my courage, my heart. I glanced at the alpha, his eyes meeting mine, dark and steady, filled with the same determination I felt. No words were needed. We had survived. Together, endured together, and now we would face the final trial together. The enemy crouched, ready to strike again, its eyes glowing with malevolence. I inhaled deeply, feeling the power of my bloodline, the rhythm of my wolf, the bond of love that had been reforged in shadows. And I stepped forward. The alpha flanked me, claws flashing, teeth bared. The enemy lunged, and in that moment I knew, whatever happened next, I would face it fully, without fear, without hesitation, with the power of destiny and love guiding me. Because this was the final hunt. I was ready. The clearing was a battlefield. The enemy loomed larger than life, its presence radiating centuries of malice. Shadows twisted unnaturally around it, bending the moonlight into grotesque shapes. My hands trembled, not with fear, but with the knowledge of what was about to unfold. I glanced at the alpha. His eyes, sharp and unwavering, met mine. The unspoken bond between us flared bright, a tether of strength in the darkness. "This is it," he murmured. "No holding back." I nodded, wolf stirring beneath my skin, instinct sharpened, heart pounding like a drum of war. The enemy lunged first, faster than anything I had anticipated. The alpha met it head-on, claws flashing, teeth bared. I darted to the side, calling on the hidden strength of my bloodline, energy pulsing from my fingertips. He shouted. I surged forward, striking with everything I had learned, every ounce of power the prophecy had awakened in me. The enemy snarled, staggered, but it was far from defeated. The battle was chaotic, a storm of movement and energy. Claws slashed through. The air, teeth snapped, and the ground shook beneath the fury of supernatural forces colliding. My heart raced, my wolf howled in exhilaration and fear, and my body moved on instinct. But even in the chaos, my mind focused. I had a choice to make, the kind that would change everything. The enemy's attack veered toward the alpha, aiming to exploit his one opening. I knew that if I didn't intervene, He could be struck down. My chest ached as I realized the truth. I had to sacrifice something of myself to save him. Move! I yelled, rushing in, energy surging, and for a moment, time seemed to slow. I intercepted the strike, taking the brunt of the force. Pain exploded across my body, jagged and intense, but I stood, teeth gritted, refusing to fall. The alpha roared, furious and relieved, turning to face the enemy once more. His claws struck, with renewed precision, every movement perfectly synchronized with mine. We were a team bonded by destiny, by blood, by fire. The enemy snarled, its power immense, eyes burning with rage. You think your bond can save you? You are weak. You are nothing. I felt the words like venom, but I refused to succumb. My wolf pressed forward, heart racing, instincts guiding my every action. The truth of my bloodline, the prophecy, the lessons I had learned, all converged in a single purpose: survive, protect, endure. I met the enemy head-on, channeling every ounce of power I had. Light flared from my palms, energy rippling outward, and the force struck the enemy squarely. It staggered. For the first time, it hesitated. But hesitation is dangerous in battle. The enemy recovered with a brutal swipe, catching me across the shoulder. Pain flared, white-hot, and I stumbled, vision blurred. The alpha was immediately at my side, gripping my arm, his face etched with concern and fury. "Don't stop," he shouted. "We finish this together." I nodded through the haze, teeth gritted, wolf roaring in defiance. Together we surged forward, one force, one heartbeat, one unstoppable unit. Time became fractured, seconds stretching into eternity. Every strike, every dodge, every roar carried the weight of destiny. I felt the enemy's power pressing against. US, testing the limits of our bond, our courage, our love. And then it came, the moment I had feared most. The enemy lunged at me directly, faster than I could anticipate, eyes locking on mine with a terrifying intensity. My bloodline flared, a shield of energy erupting from me, but I knew it wasn't enough. If I faltered, the alpha could be struck down. If I failed, everything we had fought for would be lost. Pain seared through me as I made the choice. I dove in front of the alpha, taking the brunt of the enemy's full power. The force slammed into me, throwing me to the ground. My vision swam and darkness pressed in at the edges of my consciousness. But through the pain, I saw him, standing tall, eyes blazing with determination, claws ready, unwavering. "You are stronger than you know," he shouted, fury and love blending in his voice. "And I will never let you fall." The final clash was inevitable. Together, we struck in unison. Energy, power, and bond collided with the enemy in a blinding explosion of force. The ground shook, the air vibrated, and for a moment, everything went white. When my vision cleared, the enemy lay defeated, weakened beyond recovery, retreating into the shadows from which it came. I collapsed to my knees, trembling, body bruised and bloodied, but alive. My wolf howled, triumphant yet wary, echoing through the forest. The alpha was beside me in an instant, hands gripping my shoulders, eyes scanning for injuries, for danger. "Are you?" he began, but I shook my head weakly. "I'm here," I whispered. "I'm alive." His lips pressed briefly to my forehead, a mixture of relief, gratitude, and something deeper, more intimate. "You are incredible," he murmured. "Stronger than anything I could have imagined." We stood together, bruised, battered, but victorious. The forest around us was quiet, the threat gone, at least for now. And yet, Something fundamental had shifted, not just the battle, but us. I realized then that the choices I had made, the sacrifices, the fear I had faced head-on, had transformed me. I was no longer just a survivor. I was a warrior, a mate, a force bound by destiny, blood, and love. The moonlight fell across us, illuminating our scars, our triumph, and the bond that had carried us through the abyss. I looked at him, feeling the weight of everything we had endured, the secrets, the betrayals, the fears, the longing, and I knew one truth. We were unstoppable together. Even as my body ached, as my wolf hummed beneath my skin, as the echoes of the enemy faded into the forest, I felt complete. But victory always carries a price. The wound on my shoulder burned sharply, a reminder that battles leave marks physical and emotional. The Alpha caught my hand, steadying me, and whispered, "We will heal, together." I nodded, heart full, tears mingling with sweat. The aftermath was bitter and sweet. We had won. But the journey was not over. There were still challenges, still dangers, still the unknown. Yet, for the first time, I felt ready. We stood side by side, gazes locked, hearts beating as one. The enemy was gone. The final hunt concluded, and our bond had been tested, reforged, and solidified in fire. The forest was silent, but our destiny was loud, clear, and unyielding. We had survived the edge, and we would face whatever came next together. The forest was quiet. The echoes of battle had faded into memory, leaving only the moonlight to stretch across the clearing. The air was thick with the scent of earth, blood, and survival. I inhaled slowly, letting it fill my lungs, letting it remind me that I was still here, still alive, still changed. Beside me, the Alpha stood tall, every line of his body relaxed but alert, eyes scanning the horizon even though the threat had passed. I glanced at him, heart swelling with a mixture of relief, gratitude, and something deeper, an ache that had grown alongside our bond. Forged in shadows, struggle, and unspoken desire, we had survived the final hunt. We had faced enemies, darkness, and our own fears, and yet we were here together. Or at least almost. I thought about everything we had endured, the betrayals, the secrets, the separation that had left me shaking in the shadows, wondering if trust could ever be restored. And yet, here he was, beside me, and the bond between us felt stronger, sharper, more inevitable than ever before. You're alive, I whispered, voice trembling, still carrying the weight of disbelief. He smiled faintly, not arrogant, not casual, but quiet, full of something like reverence. "So are you," he replied. "And that's what matters." I knelt, brushing my hand along the ground, feeling the scars of the forest, the remnants of chaos. Every mark was a memory, every broken branch a reminder of what we had fought for. "I never imagined we'd survive this," I admitted softly, letting the words hang in the moonlit clearing. "I didn't know if I could." "You did," he said simply, kneeling beside me. "Every time you thought you were alone, every time you faced the shadows, you did it. You survived. You were stronger than you know." I felt warmth rise in my chest, the faint spark of pride mingling with the raw, aching connection I felt to him. My wolf hummed beneath my skin, a quiet echo of the strength and bond we had built together. We walked slowly through the clearing, side by side, letting silence fill the space between us. Words were unnecessary now. The journey we had taken, the battles we had fought, the trust we had rebuilt, it all spoke louder than any declaration could. Remembered the first time I had seen him, the fleeting shadow in the forest, the magnetic pull I couldn't resist. I remembered the first battle we had fought together, the times I had doubted him, the moments I had wanted to flee. And I realized that every fear, every misstep had led us here, to this fragile, unshakable truth. We belong together, bound by more than choice, or chance bound by destiny. The Alpha paused, turning to face me fully. His eyes reflected moonlight, but also something deeper: trust, love, and the weight of all we had endured. "You are mine," he said softly, voice low, steady. "Not in the way the world dictates, but in the way we've earned it. Through survival, through blood, through every danger we've faced together. You are mine and I am yours." I felt tears prick my eyes, a mixture of relief, longing, and the fierce, undeniable pull that had never let me go. "And I am yours," I whispered, letting the words carry everything I had felt but could never say before: the fear, the doubt, the desire, the unwavering devotion that had grown in the shadows. We stood there, the forest silent except for our synchronized breaths. The moonlight painted us in silver, highlighting the scars and marks we bore from the trials of the night. Every wound, every bruise, every aching muscle was a testament to survival, to loyalty, to love forged under fire. "You've changed me," he murmured, reaching to brush a strand of hair from my face. "I was fierce before, but I am complete because of you, because of this bond." "And you've changed me too," I admitted, voice soft. "I was lost, afraid, trying to resist something I couldn't control. You showed me what strength really is, what trust is, what love is." We walked to the edge of the clearing, standing together beneath the ancient trees that had witnessed so much. Shadows stretched long, but there was no longer fear, only memory, reflection, and the quiet resonance of destiny fulfilled. I think we can finally rest," I said, letting my hand find his again, fingers interlacing naturally, instinctively. "For now," he nodded, pulling me close, the heat of his presence anchoring me, steadying me, completing the bond we had fought so hard to preserve. I looked up at the moon, its pale light reflecting in the Alpha's eyes. "The future is still uncertain," I said softly. "There will always be danger, always be enemies, but—" My voice caught. "We have each other." "Yes," he said, voice firm. "Always, you and I, together, no matter what comes." And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I believed it. The forest seemed to exhale around us, the tension of battles fought dissipating into the night. I felt the wolf inside me, calm, steady, no longer restless or hungry. It lay beneath my skin like a quiet guardian, a reflection of the bond we had forged and the strength we had claimed together. I knew, deep down, that nothing would ever be the same. We were not the same as when this journey began. We were forged by fire, bound by destiny, and bound to each other in a way that transcended fear, danger, and time. I leaned my head against the Alpha's chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. Every breath, every pulse, felt like a promise of protection, of love, of eternity. "You will stay with me?" I whispered, more than a question, a plea, a vow, an acknowledgement of everything we had survived. "Always," he replied. And in his tone, I heard more than words. I heard truth. I heard destiny. The night deepened, stars glittering faintly above the canopy. And I realized that though darkness would always exist, though danger would always lurk, there was also light, love, an unbreakable bond. And as I closed my eyes, feeling his warmth, hearing his steady breath, I understood the final truth. The echoes of our journey would last forever, in the forest, in our hearts, and in the unshakable bond between us. We had survived, we had loved, and we had become eternal echoes bound together beyond fear, beyond destiny, beyond the shadows that had once threatened to tear us apart. The days after the gathering felt heavier, as if the air itself carried secrets I wasn't meant to know. I told myself I was imagining things, that the footsteps behind me, the eyes in the trees, were nothing more than tricks of my mind. But even in the bright daylight, the world no longer felt safe. And then the whispers began. Not the gossiping whispers of the pack that I was used to. These were different, quieter, colder. They reached me in places where no one should have been, slipping through the stillness like breath against the back of my neck. The first time it happened, I was at the well, drawing water for my mother. The square was nearly empty, save for an old woman bent over her basket of herbs. I hauled the rope, the bucket scraping against stone. When I heard it, words so faint, I thought they were carried on the wind. He sees you. I froze, water sloshing over the rim. Did you say something? I asked the woman. She looked up, her eyes clouded with age, and shook her head. Nothing, child. But the way she said it made my skin crawl, as if she had said something and regretted it. The next whisper came at dawn, drifting through my open window before the village stirred. I jolted awake, heart racing, certain I had heard someone call my name. But when I pushed back the shutters, the street was empty. Only the crows shifted on the rooftops, their black wings restless. One of them tilted its head at me, eyes gleaming like obsidian. It cawed once sharp, almost mocking, and then flew off into the trees. I should have dismissed it. But my wolf stirred uneasily, and for the rest of the day, I couldn't shake the feeling that the bird's gaze had been more than just an animal's instinct. The strangest sign came 3 nights later. I had gone to the river again, desperate for clarity, for silence, for anything to quiet the storm inside me. The moon was bright, silver streaks rippling over the water, and I sat on the bank hugging my knees, breathing in the night air. That's when I saw it, carved into the bark of the old oak across the water-fresh marks, deep and deliberate, a symbol I had never seen before. 2 circles intertwined, slashed through the center with a single claw mark. I couldn't look away. Something about it pulled at me, made my pulse race in recognition I couldn't explain. My wolf whimpered low inside me, ears flat. Who did this? I whispered aloud, though no one was there to hear. The forest gave no answer. But I knew it hadn't been there before. And I knew, somehow, that it was meant for me. When I told my mother, she brushed it off as nonsense. Probably children playing games, she said, though her eyes darted away too quickly, her hands tightening around the cloth she was folding. When I asked her again, more firmly, she snapped, "Leave it alone. Some things are not yours to question." Her words stung, but more than that, they terrified me, because my mother never snapped by the next morning. The symbol had been scraped away, the bark scarred but the meaning erased. Yet I felt no relief, only the weight of something unfinished, unsaid. And still, the whispers followed me. At the market, a hunter brushed past me, muttering under his breath, "The Alpha's eyes are on you." When I spun, ready to demand what he meant, he had already melted into the crowd. That night, as I walked home, I passed 2 women gossiping outside their doors. I caught only fragments, a claim not by fate. Dangerous. The girl doesn't know. When they saw me, they fell silent, their smiles too tight, too false. The unease grew until it coiled inside me like a living thing. It was more than gossip, more than cruel curiosity. It was warning. Someone knew something about the Alpha, about me, about why he watched me the way he did. And the closer I came to the truth, the more the shadows seemed to thicken around me. That evening, as I bolted my door, a slip of parchment caught my eye. It had been wedged into the crack of the wood, so thin I almost missed it. My hands shook as I pulled it free and unfolded it. No signature, no flourish, just 5 words scrawled in dark ink. Beware the Alpha's claim. The letters blurred as fear burned hot in my chest. I stumbled back, clutching the note, my ears straining for sounds outside. But the night was still. Too still. My wolf growled softly inside me, not in warning this time, but in recognition. She already knew. And as I sank against the door, the note trembling in my hands, suspicion clawed its way into my heart. Whatever was happening, whatever force had shifted the moment Luca rejected me, this was only the beginning, and it was circling closer. I didn't sleep after finding the note. The words burned in my mind, beware the Alpha's claim. Every creak of the wooden floor, every brush of the wind against the shutters made my pulse quicken. I kept expecting someone to appear in the dark corners of my room, silent and waiting, but no one came. When dawn finally broke, it was a relief. The sunlight felt fragile, thin, as if it barely kept the shadows at bay. But it was enough to remind me that the world still spun, that I still had to get up, wash, breathe, keep moving. I tried. Spirits, I tried. But unease followed me everywhere. At the market, people glanced over their shoulders when I passed, their whispers sharper now, like the hiss of snakes. Some looked at me with pity, others with fear, and a few with something I couldn't name, resentment, maybe, or envy. I wanted to shout at them. Tell me what you know. Tell me why you look at me this way. But the words stayed locked in my throat. By midday, the heat of the sun did little to soothe me. I wandered toward the forest, needing air, needing silence. Though I knew I shouldn't. The woods had become a place of unease, filled with eyes that never revealed themselves. Still, something inside me pulled toward them. The trees stood tall and unmoving, their shadows stretching long across the forest floor. The scent of pine and moss was thick, grounding, yet beneath it lingered something else, something richer, darker, that made my wolf lift her head inside me. She pressed at the edges of my mind, restless. He's here. I froze. My heart leapt into my throat, though I couldn't see anyone. The silence deepened, as if the forest itself held its breath. Then, movement aflicker at the edge of my vision. I turned sharply. Nothing. Just the sway of branches. But the scent. It grew stronger. Musky, commanding, threaded with power. It made my pulse skip, my skin prickle, my body betray me even as my mind screamed danger. I spun again, scanning the trees, my breath quick and shallow. And then I saw him, not clearly. Just a silhouette between the trunks. Too tall, too still, watching. For a moment I thought it was a trick of the light. But then he shifted, one step forward, and my wolf whined low in my chest. The world narrowed to that shadowed figure. My hands trembled, my knees weakened, yet I couldn't look away. I should have run. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, to put distance between myself and whatever this was. But instead, I stood rooted to the ground, caught in something I couldn't escape. The pull was magnetic. Dangerous. I couldn't see his face, couldn't hear his voice, but I felt him. A presence like gravity, like a tide threatening to drag me under. Seconds stretched, the space between us charged, until the pressure became unbearable. I blinked just once, and when my eyes opened, he was gone. The forest stood empty again, but the silence wasn't empty. It pulsed as if it still held his echo. My knees gave out, and I sank to the damp earth, clutching at my chest as if I could calm the wild rhythm of my heart. My breaths came fast, ragged, the scent of him still burning in my lungs. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the place where he'd stood. Long enough to realize the truth I didn't want to admit. I wasn't just afraid. I was curious. That night, sleep refused to come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the silhouette again, the way the air had shifted, the way my wolf had responded. She hadn't been afraid. She had been eager. He is strength, she murmured inside me. He is power. He is ours. No, I whispered into the darkness. He can't be. But the denial rang hollow. Because deep down, I knew what my wolf was hinting at. That shadow in the trees hadn't just been watching me. He had been waiting. The day after I saw the shadow in the woods, nothing felt the same. Every sound seemed sharper. Every movement at the edge of my vision made my heart leap. Even the air felt heavier, as though it pressed down on me, reminding me that something had shifted, something I couldn't take back. By evening, I couldn't stay in the village anymore. The stares, the whispers, the endless churn of my own thoughts, they were suffocating me. So I walked. My steps carried me where I swore I wouldn't go again. Into the forest. The sun dipped lower, shadows stretching long between the trees. The air smelled of pine and damp earth, but beneath it, faint and unmistakable, was him. That same musky, commanding scent that made my wolf stir with restless longing. He's here, she whispered again, her voice trembling with something dangerously close to eagerness. I wrapped my arms around myself. I know. I should have turned back. I should have run. But my feet carried me deeper, as though they belonged to someone else. The forest was silent, too silent. No birdsong, no rustling of small creatures. Just the sound of my breathing, sharp and uneven. And then I felt it dot the shift, like the air itself thickened. Like every leaf, every shadow leaned toward one point. I froze, my pulse hammering. Why do you always come here when you're afraid? The voice came from behind me, deep and rough, carrying a weight that made my whole body tense. I spun, and there he was, not just a silhouette this time. He stood between the trees, tall and broad-shouldered, his dark hair falling in waves around a face carved with sharp lines. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, catching mine with a force that rooted me to the spot. The air around him radiated power. It was more than physical, it was felt. My wolf pressed hard against my skin, whining softly, desperate to move closer. But my mind screamed danger. Who are you? My voice was barely a whisper. He tilted his head, as though amused. You already know. I shook my head, but the truth sat heavy in my chest. I did know. I had known since the moment I'd felt him watching me. The Alpha, I breathed. His lips curved, just slightly, but it wasn't a smile. More like acknowledgement. You shouldn't be here, I said quickly, words tumbling out before I could stop them. You shouldn't come near me. And yet, he murmured, taking one slow step forward, you came to me. My heart stuttered. I tried to move back, but my body betrayed me. I stayed rooted, caught in the gravity of him. Stay away, I said, though the words were hollow even to my own ears. Do you want me to? His eyes burned into mine, unblinking. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My breath caught, my throat tight. Because the truth was unbearable, I didn't want him to stay away. His presence terrified me, unsettled me, but it also pulled at me with a force I couldn't resist. He took another step closer, and the distance between us shrank until I could see the fine details of him. The shadow of stubble along his jaw, the faint scar slicing across his cheek, the raw intensity in his gaze that felt like it could strip me bare. Your scent, he said softly. almost reverently. It shouldn't call to me, but it does. Heat rushed to my face. My wolf pressed harder, clawing at me, begging to respond. "This is wrong," I whispered. "Maybe." His voice was a low rumble, dangerous and magnetic all at once. "But tell me you don't feel it too." I shook my head quickly. Too quickly. "I don't." The lie crumbled in my throat. My pulse betrayed me. My trembling betrayed me. The way I couldn't look away from him betrayed me. He reached out slowly, deliberately, and brushed his fingers against mine. Just a touch. Barely there. But it was enough to send a shock through me. Sharp and overwhelming, like a current sparking to life. I gasped, pulling my hand back as if burned. He watched me, his expression unreadable, though something dark and knowing flickered in his eyes. "You can deny it all you like," he said, voice low and sure. "But fate doesn't lie." The word fate lodged in my chest, heavy and suffocating. Before I could respond, he stepped back, melting into the shadows as though he had never been there. And just like that, I was alone again. But I wasn't the same Dot. My hand still tingled where he had touched me. My wolf still whimpered with longing, and my heart still pounded with a rhythm that didn't feel like my own. I pressed my back against a tree, sliding down until I sat on the cold earth. My body shook, not just with fear, but with something I couldn't name. Something I didn't want to name. Because I knew the truth. I wasn't just drawn to him. I was already caught. Sleep was no refuge. That night, I dreamed of him. The alpha stood in a forest clearing, moonlight catching in his dark hair, his eyes glowing like fire. He stretched out his hand to me, and when I took it, the world around us burned, trees crackling to ash, stars falling like embers from the sky. But when I tried to let go, I couldn't. His grip was unbreakable, binding me to him even as the world crumbled. I woke with a cry, heart pounding, sheets tangled around my legs, the faint smell of smoke still in my nose. For a long moment I lay there, staring at the ceiling. Was it just a dream? Or a warning? I wanted to shake it off, but unease clung to me like damp clothing. The next morning, I tried to drown myself in routine fetching water, helping at the bakery, pretending everything was normal. But even the village felt different. People glanced at me strangely, their gazes lingering too long, whispers trailing behind me as I passed. "She looks pale." "Cursed, maybe." I heard she was in the woods again. Their words crawled over my skin. At the bakery, I nearly dropped a basket of bread when I turned, and found a raven perched on the windowsill. It stared at me with black, beady eyes, then let out a single harsh call before flying off. My boss laughed it off, but my stomach twisted. It hadn't felt random. It had felt deliberate, like a message. That night, the dreams returned. Only this time I wasn't in the forest. I was in the village square. The ground beneath me cracked and bleeding fire. The alpha stood on one side, my fated mate, the one who ejected me on the other. Both reached for me. Both called my name. I screamed, torn in two, until the dream shattered into blackness. I woke gasping, sweat soaking my nightdress, my wolf pacing inside me with restless, frantic energy. "He's calling," she whispered. "Can't you feel it?" And I could. His presence was everywhere, in my dreams, in the silence of the woods, in the strange rhythm of my own heartbeat. The following day, the accidents began. First, a lantern fell from its hook in the tavern, crashing onto the floor inches from my feet. The glass shattered, flames licking dangerously close before someone stamped them out. Later, while fetching water from the river, the old bridge's planks cracked beneath me. I barely scrambled back before the wood splintered, and fell into the rushing water below. By evening, I was shaken to my core. Coincidences, I told myself. That was all. But deep down, I knew better. These weren't random. These were warnings or tests. And always, that scent lingered in the air. Musk and pine and smoke. His scent. By nightfall, the village felt unbearable. My chest was tight, my skin prickled with invisible pressure. I needed air. So I went back to the woods. The forest was alive with whispers, leaves shifting though no wind blew. Every step felt heavy, as if the ground itself was urging me forward. Why do you fight it? His voice rolled through the trees like thunder. I spun, heart hammering, and there he was again. Half shadow, half man, watching me with those piercing eyes. I don't belong to you, I said, though the words quivered. His gaze flicked over me, sharp, assessing. Then why do you keep coming back? I opened my mouth, but no answer came. Because he was right. I did keep coming back. Your mate rejected you. His words were not cruel, only matter of fact. But fate doesn't abandon what it chooses. Fate is cruel, I shot back. It ties knots only to strangle us. He stepped closer, his presence pressing against me like a storm front. My wolf shivered, half with fear, half with need. Or maybe, he murmured, fate is trying to save you. Before I could respond, a crack split the silence. The tree beside me groaned, splintering, its trunk tilting. I barely had time to gasp before it began to fall right toward me. I stumbled back, legs tangled in roots. Panic surged through me. Then, in a blur of motion, strong arms wrapped around me and yanked me clear. The tree crashed down where I had stood a heartbeat earlier, shaking the ground. Leaves and dust exploded into the air. I clung to him, breathless, trembling. His body was solid, warm, unyielding. His heart pounded against mine like a war drum. For a moment, the world shrank to just that, his arms, his scent, his steady presence holding me against the chaos. Slowly, I looked up. His face was close, too close, his eyes glowing with something fierce and dangerous. Do you still think you don't belong to me? He asked softly. My lips parted, but no sound came, because in that moment, with death behind me and him in front of me, I wasn't sure of anything anymore. His arms lingered around me, even after the fallen tree stopped trembling. I should have pushed him away, but my body refused to move. My breath came in shallow gasps, my cheek pressed against the solid warmth of his chest. You could have died, he murmured, his voice low, rough, almost unsteady. I tilted my head up, searching his face. For a moment I thought I saw something there: concern. Raw and unguarded, hidden behind that hard exterior. I didn't, I whispered. His lips curved. Not quite a smile, but close enough to unsettle me. No, not while I'm here. He didn't leave me after that. Not immediately. Instead, we walked together through the forest, the night pressing close around us. His stride unhurried, mine quick to keep up. The silence between us wasn't empty, it thrummed, alive with things neither of us dared say. Finally, I broke it. Why me? His head turned slightly, his glowing eyes catching the faint moonlight. You think I chose this? My throat tightened. Didn't you? For the first time, his composure cracked. His jaw flexed, his gaze flicked away. Fate doesn't ask. It demands. The words settled in me like a weight. My wolf stirred, restless, whispering of bonds and destiny. And yet my mate rejected me, I said bitterly. Something sharp flared in his expression. He was a fool. The certainty in his tone made my breath catch. I wanted to argue, to tell him he didn't understand. But deep down, Part of me agreed. We stopped at the edge of a small clearing. The moonlight pooled silver across the grass, painting everything in shades of magic. He stood beside me, silent, watching the sky. I risked a glance at him. His profile was striking, strong jaw, dark hair framing his face, every line etched with quiet intensity. "You're not what they say," I found myself whispering. That drew his gaze to mine, sudden and sharp. "And what do they say?" "That you're dangerous. A shadow. A curse." His expression didn't change, but his eyes darkened, a storm gathering in their depths. "They're not wrong," he said quietly. The air between us tightened. I wanted to step back, but I didn't. Something in his voice, pain, maybe, a warning, kept me rooted. "If you were only danger," I said softly, "why would you have saved me?" He looked at me for a long time, too long. Then, almost reluctantly, he said, "Because you're mine." My heart stuttered, a fragile rhythm against the gravity of his words. We sat on a fallen log, and for the first time, he let the silence break into something gentler. He asked me about my childhood, my favorite places in the village, the dreams I once had before rejection carved a hollow in me. In turn, I asked him about the forest. He told me of the rivers hidden deep in its heart, of the way the wolves ran under the full moon, of a world I had always been too afraid to touch. His words painted pictures that stirred something inside me. Longing, curiosity, an ache I couldn't name. And through it all, the space between us seemed to shrink. Our shoulders brushed once, then again. Neither of us pulled away. Every glance, every fleeting touch was a thread, weaving something fragile but undeniable. At one point, I shivered, the night air biting at my skin. Without a word, he shrugged off his cloak and draped it over my shoulders. The gesture was simple, but it lit a warmth in me that had nothing to do with the fabric. "Thank you," I whispered. His gaze lingered on me, heavy and unreadable. "You shouldn't thank me. One day you may curse me for it." The words should have chilled me. Instead, they sank deep, unsettling and magnetic all at once. Hours must have passed, though it felt like moments. My eyelids grew heavy, lulled by his voice, his nearness. Then, a sound cut through the night. A howl, low, mournful, and far too close. I jolted, my heart leaping. What was that? His jaw tightened. Not mine. Before I could ask, he rose, moving with fluid, predatory grace. His entire presence shifted, tense, alert, dangerous. "Stay here," he ordered, his tone brooking no argument. But fear and curiosity tangled in me. I stood anyway, watching as he stepped into the clearing, the moonlight spilling fully over him. And then I saw it. For the briefest moment, his form wavered, his hands curled like claws, his eyes blazed brighter. His shadow stretched unnaturally long. His shoulders rippled as though something beneath his skin strained to break free. A shape too large, too wild to be human flickered around him, like a wolf carved from smoke and light, crouched inside his body. I gasped. Stumbling back, he turned, catching my reaction, and for the first time I saw fear in his eyes. Not for himself, for me. "Now you know," he said hoarsely. The image burned into me like a brand. Those glowing eyes, that shifting form, the shadow of a wolf crouched inside his human shape. Even after he stilled, even after his body settled back into the shape of a man, I couldn't unsee it, couldn't unknow it. I stumbled back a step, heart hammering. "What are you?" He flinched almost imperceptibly, but I caught it. His gaze dropped to the ground, then rose again, steady but shadowed. "You already know," he said. I shook my head hard. No, I don't. I can't. You felt it, he cut in, his voice sharp, unyielding. In your bones, in your blood, the pull, the fear, the wanting. That is truth. The words struck deep, because part of me had felt it, long before I admitted it. The dreams, the whispers of my wolf, the way his scent rooted itself in my veins. But hearing it aloud was something else. You're not human, I whispered. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence between us stretched until I wanted to scream. Finally, I managed. Why show me? Why now? His expression tightened. Because fate is patient, but the world is not. The others will come. They'll sense the bond. They'll try to use it. The word bond made my stomach twist. I wanted to demand answers, to crawl the truth out of him. But the way he said others stopped me cold. Others? I echoed. He hesitated just long enough to confirm my fear. There are more like me, he admitted quietly. The forest seemed to press closer around us. The shadows darker, the silence deeper. Wolves, I said, the word trembling on my tongue. His eyes flashed, but he didn't deny it. The ground beneath me felt suddenly unstable. The man who had saved me, who had sat beside me and spoken of rivers and moons, wasn't a man at all. He was something else, something I should fear. Yet when I looked at him, standing in the clearing with his shoulders squared and his gaze fixed on me, I didn't see only danger. I saw strength. I saw loneliness. I saw a truth I wasn't sure I could bear, but one I couldn't turn away from either. My wolf stirred restlessly, not afraid. Drawn. Why me? I whispered. He studied me for a long moment, then said, because the bond doesn't break just because another was too blind to see it. He meant my mate, the one who had rejected me. My throat tightened. Stop. But he stepped closer, eyes burning. No, you need to understand. You were never meant to be his. You were always meant to be mine. His words were fire and ice all at once. My wolf howled inside me, clawing toward him, but my mind reeled back. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to collapse into the certainty of his voice, the heat of his presence. But what if it was a lie? What if everything he said was just a snare to drag me into his world of shadows and teeth? A rustle in the trees snapped me out of my spiraling thoughts. Something large moved in the distance, too heavy to be deer. His head turned sharply, shoulders tensing. They're closer than I thought, he muttered. Who? He didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed my wrist, his hand warm, firm, unyielding. Come, he said. I pulled back instinctively. No, I don't trust you. For the first time, pain flickered across his face, real, raw. It was gone in an instant, replaced by hard resolve. You don't have to trust me, he said tightly. But if you stay here, you'll regret it. The rustle came again, nearer this time. A low growl echoed faintly through the trees. Not his. Fear coiled tight in my chest. Against every instinct screaming at me to run, I let him guide me away from the clearing. His grip was steady, not crushing, but unrelenting. We wove through the trees, silent except for the crunch of leaves underfoot, and the distant, stalking sounds behind us. Finally, we stopped near a narrow stream, moonlight rippling across the water. He released me then, his hand falling back to his side. You should go home, he said, his voice quieter now, strained. Stay inside. Lock your door. Do not open it to anyone. I wrapped his cloak tighter around me, my body trembling. And if it's you at my door? His eyes softened, just barely. Then you'll have to decide if fear or fate wins. I turned to leave, but I couldn't stop myself from glancing back. He was still there, standing at the stream's edge. His shadow stretched long and strange in the moonlight dot, and as I watched for the briefest moment, his outline wavered again, the flicker of a wolf, tall and wild, crouched just beneath his skin. My breath caught. When his gaze lifted, catching mine across the distance, I felt it again, that magnetic pull, that dangerous certainty. I tore my eyes away and forced myself to keep walking, though every step was heavier than the last dot by the time I reached the village. Mistrust had settled deep in my chest, coiled tight around my ribs. I didn't know what he truly was. I didn't know what the others wanted. All I knew was that the bond between us was real, and that terrified me more than any shadow in the woods. I told myself I would stay away after that night, after the flicker of his shadowed form, the warning in his voice, the way his hand had gripped mine, as though it belonged there. I swore I wouldn't set foot in the forest again. But swearing didn't silence the bond. By day, I tried to bury myself in routine. I kneaded dough, fetched water, mended clothes, anything to keep my hands busy. Yet in every quiet moment, my mind betrayed me. I saw his eyes in the firelight, his hand brushing mine, his voice wrapping around me like smoke. By night, my dreams claimed me. I dreamed of running barefoot through the woods, moonlight silvering my skin. Behind me, the sound of paws striking earth, swift and steady, not chasing, guarding, surrounding, claiming. When I turned, he was there, both man and wolf at once, his form shifting like mist, his gaze burning into me. Each time, I woke trembling, heart racing, the echo of his presence clinging to me like a second skin. But it wasn't only dreams. Small things in the waking world reminded me of him. A gust of wind carrying the faintest trace of his scent. The distant howl of wolves at night, making my chest tighten with something dangerously close to yearning. Once, in the market square, I thought I saw him, just a fleeting glimpse of broad shoulders and dark hair vanishing down an alley. My pulse leapt. But when I followed, the street was empty. Was he haunting me? Or was I haunting myself? My wolf whispered endlessly, restless beneath my skin. He's ours. He's fate. Stop fighting it. But I couldn't stop fighting. Remembered the rejection too clearly. The way my mate had looked at me with cold eyes and said no. The hollow it had carved into me. The humiliation of being unwanted. I wouldn't risk that again. I wouldn't shatter myself on someone dangerous. Someone not even fully human. And yet, every argument I made crumbled against the memory of his arms saving me, his voice calling me mine with a conviction that shook me to my bones. One evening, I lingered by the river longer than I meant to. The sun had set. The village lights glowed faint in the distance, and the woods pressed dark and heavy around me. I told myself I was just fetching water, but my eyes kept lifting to the tree line, searching shadows I claimed I didn't want to see. Why do you keep coming here? His voice slid through the night, deep and familiar. I spun, the bucket slipping from my hands, splashing into the river. He stood on the far bank, half in shadow, half in moonlight. My pulse leapt, anger and relief colliding in my chest. You shouldn't sneak up on people. His lips curved faintly. And yet you knew it was me before you turned. Heat crept up my neck. He was right. I had known. Go back to your world, I said, forcing steadiness I didn't feel. Leave me to mine. He tilted his head, eyes glowing faintly. If that were what you wanted, you wouldn't be here. The words cut deep. Because maybe he was right. He stepped forward, crossing the stream as though the water itself parted for him. Every stride shrank the distance between us, and my body betrayed me. I couldn't move back. When he reached me, His presence swallowed the space around us. My breath hitched, my wolf pressed hard against my skin, desperate to touch him. "You're trembling," he said softly. "Because I'm afraid," I whispered. His gaze sharpened. "No, because you're fighting yourself." I shook my head, but the denial was weak. His hand lifted, hovering near my face, not quite touching, just close enough for the heat of him to brush my skin. "I don't want this," I said, though my voice quivered with betrayal. He leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. "Then why does your wolf call to me every time I'm near?" The truth clawed at me. My wolf did call to him louder, stronger, insistent. A pull I couldn't silence no matter how hard I tried. "Stop," I begged, though my voice cracked. "Tell me you don't feel it," he murmured. "Look me in the eye and say it." I couldn't. The words stuck in my throat, drowned by the roaring of my pulse and the heat rushing through me. His fingers finally touched my jaw, light as a whisper. The spark of it jolted through me, stronger than any dream, fiercer than any memory. My knees went weak. I should have pulled away. Instead, I swayed closer. His eyes burned into mine, waiting, giving me the chance to flee. But I didn't. And in that suspended heartbeat, I realized I was no longer running from danger. I was standing on the edge of temptation. One breath, one word, one reckless choice, and I would fall. I thought temptation was my greatest danger, thought the war inside me, between fear and longing, resistance and surrender, was the fiercest battle I'd face. But I was wrong. Because while I wrestled with my own heart, the forest around me had already begun to stir. And not with him. With something darker. It began with the silence. Nights in our village were never quiet. Crickets sang, owls hooted, the river rushed over stones. But 3 evenings after I saw him at the river, the sound stopped. The first time I noticed only because it was so strange. I lay in bed, waiting for the usual hum of the woods, but it never came. The second night, the stillness felt heavier, thicker, as though the air itself was holding its breath. By the third, I couldn't ignore it. Even the villagers whispered. Old men muttered in corners. Mothers pulled their children indoors earlier than usual. A sense of dread clung to everything. Then came the animals. A farmer found one of his goats dead, its throat torn out, but no blood spilled on the ground. 2 nights later, the baker's dog vanished from its chain, leaving only claw marks in the earth. And then the birds. They didn't just fall silent, they fled. Whole flocks abandoned the fields at once, wings beating in frantic unison, disappearing into the sky. The forest was emptying itself, as if it knew what was coming. I wanted to believe it was just wolves, ordinary ones. Hunger, nothing more. But deep down I knew better. This wasn't hunger. This was warning, and his face haunted me with every clue. I saw him again, not in the village, but in the woods. He appeared when the mist was thick, stepping from the shadows as though he belonged to them. "You shouldn't be here," he said. His eyes scanned the trees, sharp, watchful. I almost laughed at the irony. "You're the one who keeps finding me." He didn't smile this time. His jaw was tight, his shoulders tense, as though carrying a weight I couldn't see. "It isn't safe," he said. The way he said it chilled me more than the silence had. I wanted to ask what he meant, but before I could, a branch cracked in the distance. He froze. His body shifted subtly, like a predator sensing another. His head lifted, eyes narrowing, nostrils flaring as if he was scenting the air. The forest seemed to hold its breath again. "Go home," he told me, voice low and sharp. "What is it?" I whispered. "Not what," he said, eyes darkening. "Who?" I ran then, because the edge in his voice left no room for defiance. But even as I hurried back to the safety of my cottage, my pulse racing, I couldn't shake the truth. Something was out there, watching, hunting, and it wasn't him. The villagers noticed too. A shadow passed among us, unseen but felt. At the well, women whispered of strange men glimpsed at the forest's edge, their eyes glowing faint in the dark. A merchant swore he saw a figure cloaked in smoke, standing at the crossroads, vanishing when he blinked. Some called them ghosts. Others swore they were rival packs, wolves with no allegiance, moving closer each night. But the one rumor that clung to me most was the one, spoken in half a whisper. Vampires. I'd heard the stories as a child. The pale hunters of the night, rivals to wolves, bound by ancient grudges. They belonged to myths, fairy tales used to keep children from wandering. And yet, when I thought of the bloodless goat, the vanished dog, the silence in the woods, I couldn't laugh them off anymore. The next time I saw him, my fear boiled over. "You know what's happening, don't you?" I demanded. We stood in the shadows of the trees, moonlight barely reaching the forest floor. His face was grave, older somehow, as though burdened with memories that didn't belong to this world. He didn't answer right away. And when he did, his voice was low. "They found me." The words sent a chill down my spine. "Who?" I whispered. His gaze locked on mine, unflinching. "The ones I've been running from. The ones who'll destroy anything to get to me." The ground seemed to shift under my feet. All this time, I'd thought the danger was him, that he was the storm that had upended my life. But now I realized the storm followed him. "They'll come here," I breathed. "They already have," he said. For the first time, I saw something in his eyes I hadn't expected. Not danger, not fire, but guilt. "This isn't your fight," he said, voice tight. "If you stay near me, you'll be dragged into it." And his jaw clenched. "I can't let that happen." But even as he spoke, the air shifted around us. A low hiss cut through the night, chilling and inhuman. Shadows thickened at the tree line, too dense, too wrong. My wolf bristled within me, howling a warning. He turned instantly, body tense, ready to strike. His eyes glowed, his voice dropping to a growl. "They're here." And for the first time, I realized the threat wasn't just whispers, wasn't just dreams. It was real. And it was coming for both of us. I barely slept after that night. The hiss in the forest still echoed in my ears, haunting the edges of my thoughts. His words, "they found me," clung to me like a shadow I couldn't shake. I kept replaying it, over and over, wondering if I had misheard. But I hadn't. He was being hunted. And now, so was I. Yet it wasn't the threat of the enemies that unsettled me most. It was the look in his eyes, that flicker of guilt, as though he knew something I didn't. I went to my grandmother. The next morning. She was the only one left in my family who remembered the old ways. The rest of us, my parents before they passed, had long tried to live like ordinary villagers, ignoring the whispers of magic that clung to our bloodline. But my grandmother never ignored them. She sat by the fire, her hands gnarled with age, her eyes still sharp as a hawk's. When I told her about the silence in the woods, the strange deaths, the shadow I'd seen, she didn't look surprised. She looked resigned. "It has begun again," she said softly, more to herself than to me. "What has?" My voice cracked. She studied me with those piercing eyes. "Child, do you know why your mother feared the night? Why she never let you wander too far after dusk?" I shook my head, heart pounding. My mother had always been protective. Yes, but I thought it was grief or worry. "Nothing more." My grandmother's voice dropped low. "Because your blood is not ordinary. Our line is tied to them, wolves, hunters, and those darker still. The bond runs deeper than you know. I stared at her. That's just superstition. She didn't flinch. Then why do you dream of running through the forest on 4 legs? Why does the howl of wolves stir your bones instead of chilling them? Why do you feel the pull of one who should terrify you? Her words struck like blows. She shouldn't have known about my dreams. I'd never told a soul. Because you are marked, she continued. Not by chance. By prophecy. I felt the world tilt beneath me. What prophecy? Her eyes glimmered with sorrow. Long ago, before even I was born, our family was bound to a pact. A child of our line would carry cursed blood, the blood of wolves and humans interwoven. That child would be a bridge. Or a weapon. My mouth went dry. A weapon for who? For whoever claims you, she whispered. I stumbled back, shaking my head. No, that's impossible. I'm just a girl. She interrupted sharply. Look at your life. The rejection by your fated mate, though no reason was given. The way danger coils around you like smoke. The way he... Her eyes burned. The alpha finds you, again and again, though you never call for him. Her words stole the breath from me, because hadn't I wondered the same? Why my mate had turned cold without explanation? Why the alpha's presence tugged at me stronger than my own will? My grandmother leaned forward, her hand gripping mine. Her touch was cold, trembling. Listen carefully, child. Your blood is not pure. It carries an ancient binding, one that has slept for generations. But now it stirs. The enemies in the forest do not come only for him. They come for you. The fire crackled, throwing shadows across her face. I wanted to argue, to call her words nonsense. But my wolf stirred inside me, restless as though it already knew the truth I couldn't bear to face. I returned home in a daze. Every corner of my cottage seemed smaller, every breath tighter. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, searching for something, some mark, some sign that proved her wrong. But all I saw were my own eyes. Eyes that glimmered faintly in the moonlight. A shimmer that hadn't been there before. My heart pounded. Was it imagination? Or was my bloodline already waking inside me? The next time I saw him, I demanded the truth. You knew, didn't you? I accused. My voice shook, but not from fear, from anger. He turned, his expression unreadable. Knew what? That I'm not ordinary. That my family is tied to. All of this. My throat burned. That's why you keep coming back, isn't it? Not because you want to, but because you need to. For the first time, he looked away. The silence between us answered louder than words. Tell me. I pushed, my hands clenched at my sides. Is it true? Am I cursed? His gaze snapped back to mine. Fierce. No. Relief flickered until he added, not cursed, chosen. The word cut deeper than a blade. Chosen for what? I demanded, his jaw tightened. For war. I staggered back, shaking my head. But the truth rang in my chest, resonating with my grandmother's words, with the dreams, with the pull I couldn't resist. War. Blood, prophecy. And me, at the center of it all. I had thought rejection was my greatest wound, but now I understood. My very blood carried a destiny I could neither escape nor deny, and it terrified me. The forest had never felt more suffocating. I kept glancing over my shoulder, heart hammering. Every rustle of leaves made me flinch. Every shadow could hide a predator. And yet, I couldn't stop moving toward him. He stood by the river, just as before, but this time the air around him was tense, almost electric. His jaw was tight, eyes scanning the tree line, and for the first time, I noticed the faint tremor in his shoulders. You're late, he said. Voice low, almost accusatory. I began. But stopped. Why was I explaining? You were thinking, he said, finishing the sentence for me. About trust. I bristled. Of course I am. How could I not? After everything. He studied me, and I saw a flicker of something behind his eyes. Concern? Pain? Or the same storm of guilt I had seen before? After everything, you still came, he said softly. I wanted to argue, to shout that loyalty meant nothing if I couldn't trust him. But the warmth in his voice, the steady presence, drew me closer, despite the fear curling in my chest. You're hiding something, I said finally. He flinched. Not a dramatic gesture, just the faintest shift of his weight, and it struck me harder than any blow could. I am, he admitted quietly. But not everything is mine to tell. The words burned in my mind. Half-truths, omissions. Everything I had learned so far had been pieced together, never fully explained. And the pull I felt toward him was tangled with fear. We walked together through the forest, silence stretching between us. The moonlight barely reached the ground, and the shadows seemed to deepen with every step. I don't know if I can trust you, I said finally. My voice trembled, betraying the war inside me. You can, he replied immediately, with a confidence that almost made me believe it. But you don't have to. Not yet. I shook my head. How do you expect me to? Before I could finish, the underbrush ahead snapped violently. Both of us froze. From the shadows, a figure emerged tall, cloaked in black, eyes gleaming unnaturally. Not wolf, not man. Something in between, something wrong. Back, the alpha growled, stepping in front of me. His stance was protective, commanding, unyielding. I wanted to feel safe. I wanted to believe he could protect me. And yet, deep inside, my heart wavered, because I didn't know the full truth. The figure tilted its head, speaking in a voice that sent shivers down my spine. You've brought her here, Alpha. Did you tell her? Did you warn her of what she carries? He stiffened. I told her enough. Enough? The figure's laugh was hollow, cruel. Enough to survive? Or enough to die knowing nothing? I swallowed hard. His gaze flicked to me, tension darkening his features. There was something he wasn't saying. Something I was meant to know. And the enemy knew it too. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream, to pull him into the safety of my denial. But the forest was thick with shadows, and fear rooted me to the spot. I began, but words failed me. You're afraid, he said, his voice softening slightly, but still firm. I know, and you should be. But don't let that fear decide your bond with me. Bond? I echoed, voice sharp. How can I trust a bond built on half-truths? His jaw tightened, and I felt the edge of anger or maybe desperation in his stance. You think I lie to you to hurt you, he said, stepping closer. But I lie to protect you. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. The cloaked figure laughed again, a sound that cut through the night like a blade. Protecting her? Or controlling her? How will she know the difference, Alpha, until it's too late? I flinched at the words, because I knew the danger wasn't only outside the forest. It was inside my heart. Inside the space between us. He reached for my hand. But I stepped back. Not fully, not completely, just enough to hold my ground. I don't know if I can, I admitted, voice barely above a whisper. You will, he said quietly, almost pleading. But you have to try. Trust isn't given, it's earned. And I swear to you, I will earn it. Even if it kills me. The figure from the shadows shifted, stepping forward, dissolving into the mist. We'll meet again, it hissed. And next time, she understand what lies in her blood. or she'll die trying. Then it vanished, leaving us alone in the stillness of the forest. I exhaled shakily, relief and terror colliding in my chest. You see? He said quietly, gaze fixed on me. You don't know the half of it. But one day you will. And you will have to decide if the bond is stronger than your fear. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to lean into him, to surrender to the pull that had been haunting me since the first time we met. But the shadows in my mind were growing. The lies, the secrets, the threats outside the forest, and I didn't know if I could trust him fully, not yet. By the time I returned home, mistrust had settled in my chest like a stone. His words of protection clashed violently with the unknown truths he hid, and the image of that cloaked figure lingered in my mind. I realized, with a hollow ache, that the choice of trust was no longer simple, because trusting him could save me, or destroy me. And as I lay awake that night, listening to the unnatural silence of the forest, I knew that suspicion and betrayal were already taking root in the space between us. The bond that had drawn me in so fiercely now felt like a knife suspended above my heart, and I didn't know which way it would fall. The night came like a blade, silent, sharp, and cold. Even before I saw them, I felt the change. The air was heavier, thick with something unnatural. The forest, which had once whispered warnings, now seemed to roar in silence. And I knew the shadows were no longer lurking in the distance. They were coming. I wasn't alone when they struck. My grandmother's cottage had always felt safe, a fragile bastion against the dark whispers of our bloodline. But that night, the windows shivered under an invisible pressure, the trees surrounding the house swaying unnaturally, as though something enormous prowled outside. I clutched the doorframe, teeth chattering. My grandmother muttered something under her breath, old words that smelled of iron and ash. "They're here," she said, voice steady but eyes wide. "They?" I asked, fear twisting my stomach. "They know," she replied. "They found the trail, and they won't stop until they claim what is ours or what belongs to us." A sudden crash made me spin. The front gate splintered under an unseen force, sending shards of wood into the dark. "Stay behind me," my grandmother shouted. But before I could move, the Alpha was there. Silent, terrifying, and commanding. He moved like the shadow itself, stepping between me and the doorway. His eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight, a predator poised to strike. "They've crossed the boundary," he growled. "And they're stronger than I expected." I swallowed hard. "Who are they?" He shook his head, jaw tight. "Vampires. Hunters. Creatures older than your grandmother's stories. And they've marked you." The words sank into my chest like ice. Marked me. I had suspected it, yes, but hearing him say it aloud made my heart hammer in frantic panic. My wolf growled beneath my skin, restless, wild, demanding action. "Why me?" I whispered. "Because your blood," he said, voice heavy with weight, "is what they've been hunting for centuries." The thought made my skin crawl. My life, ordinary just yesterday, was now a beacon for monsters I couldn't even imagine. Then they came. Figures emerged from the shadows, gliding across the moonlit clearing outside the cottage. Pale faces glimmered in the faint light, eyes burning like embers. Their movements were silent, deliberate, predatory. I stumbled back, chest tight. My grandmother grabbed my hand, gripping it like a lifeline. The Alpha stepped forward. "Back!" His voice carried a growl that made the leaves shiver. "Back, or I won't hold myself responsible." But they didn't retreat. Not a single step. I wanted to flee, to run into the night and hide, but my legs refused. My wolf clawed at my insides, urging me to fight. to survive. The alpha moved again, circling the approaching figures with the precision of a hunter. He was magnificent, terrifying, and utterly untouchable. But even I could see the strain in his stance. "They're testing me," he muttered, eyes narrowing. "Testing my limits. And yours." I didn't understand what he meant, not yet. But instinct told me he was right. They were closing in, and I was a pawn caught between predator and prey. Suddenly, one of them lunged. Blindingly fast, and I barely had time to step aside. The alpha intercepted, claws and fangs visible in a blur as the figure collided with him. A harsh growl tore through the night. The fight was brutal, but contained. Shadows, teeth, claws, and strength collided in the moonlight. I couldn't take my eyes off them, though part of me wanted to look away. Every strike, every snap of jaws, reminded me. These creatures wanted me. They weren't just after him. I was the prize. And then I saw it, the mark. One of the creatures pointed a long, pale finger at me, and a black sigil burned faintly in the air before fading. My stomach dropped. I was cornered. The alpha noticed it too. He growled low, lips curling. They found the seal. They know where to strike. I felt a cold twist in my chest. Seal? Strike? My grandmother's words, his warnings, the prophecy, all of it collided into a single, terrifying realization. I wasn't just in danger. I was the target. I tried to speak, tried to ask him what to do, but the words caught in my throat. The enemies didn't wait. More of them emerged from the trees, surrounding the cottage, their movements fluid, relentless. I could hear my wolf whining inside me, desperate, urging me to fight, to run, to survive. My body trembled, half with fear, half with the pull I felt toward him, the alpha who had saved me, who haunted my dreams, who claimed a bond I couldn't deny. But right now, none of that mattered, because we were cornered. He turned to me, eyes burning fiercely. "Go to the cellar," he commanded. "Stay there. Don't move. Trust me." I can't leave you," I protested, heart pounding. "You have no choice," he said. His hand brushed my cheek, fleeting, almost tender, and yet firm as iron. "Go, now." I obeyed, stumbling toward the cellar, the sounds of snapping wood and snarling teeth closing in around us. I reached the bottom and slammed the door behind me. The darkness enveloped me like a suffocating blanket. My breath came in short gasps, every nerve on fire. Outside, the sounds of battle raged, voices, growls, and the unmistakable sound of claws tearing at wood. I pressed my hands to my ears, trying to block it out, trying to convince myself that he could handle it. And yet, the fear twisted tight around my chest. If he fell, if he failed, I was trapped. Alone. Helpless, I sank to the floor, trembling, and realized with absolute clarity. The shadows had closed in, and there was no escape. Not for me. Not for him. The cellar was dark, suffocating, but it felt safer than the chaos outside. For a brief moment, I thought I could breathe. And then he appeared. The alpha stepped down the stairs silently, the shadows clinging to him like a second skin. His eyes were sharp, glowing faintly, and yet softer than I had ever seen them. For a heartbeat, the danger of the world outside faded, and all I could see was him. "You stayed," he said quietly, almost a statement of disbelief. "I didn't trust anyone else to protect me," I admitted, voice trembling. He studied me, his gaze sweeping over my face, lingering on my lips, my eyes, my trembling hands. I could feel it, the pull between us, magnetic, impossible to resist. "You're frightened," he murmured. His hand brushed against mine, light as a whisper, and a shiver ran through me. But you're also drawn here. To me. Always. I wanted to deny it. I tried. My mind screamed danger. He's dangerous. Don't. But my heart and my wolf had other plans. I can't stop thinking about you, I confessed, my voice barely audible. Even when I try. He stepped closer. So close that I could feel the heat radiating from him, my own breath catching in my throat. And yet you fight it, he said, voice low, intense, almost a growl. Why? Because I shouldn't feel this way, I whispered. Because it's wrong. Forbiddens. His lips brushed against my temple in a fleeting, almost torturous touch. My knees wobbled, my wolf howling softly beneath my skin. Nothing about this is wrong, he said, voice husky. You are mine in ways you don't even understand. And I've been waiting. The words made my chest tighten. My pulse raced, my hands shook. The pull between us was no longer subtle, it was overwhelming, consuming, and yet terrifying. Waiting? I asked, barely daring to breathe. For you, he murmured, lowering his voice. Always for you. I wanted to step back, to regain control, but my body betrayed me. I stepped forward instead, closing the tiny space between us, drawn by something primal, irresistible, and dangerous. His hands came to my waist, firm and grounding. I could feel the strength beneath him, the control, the power, and yet the gentleness he reserved for me alone. Do you know what you do to me? He whispered. Do you understand how much I've fought to keep you safe? To keep you alive? I could only shake my head, overwhelmed by the intensity of his gaze and the nearness of his body. We were inches apart, breaths mingling, hearts racing, trapped in a suspended moment that felt like it could shatter at any second. I've never wanted anyone like this, I confessed, voice breaking. Never anyone at all. Then don't fight it, he said, lips brushing mine in a fleeting, tantalizing tease. Because I will never let you go. Not ever. I leaned in closer, drawn to him despite the chaos outside, despite the danger, despite the knowledge that yielding to this right now might change everything our foreheads touch. The warmth of him against me made the fear inside me melt for a fleeting second. My wolf pressed hard against my skin, urging me to surrender, to embrace the bond that had been pulling us together since the moment we met. I can't, I whispered, though my body begged otherwise. Then let me show you why you should, he murmured. His hand slid to my face, tilting my chin upward. I could feel his heartbeat, strong and steady against my own. The world narrowed to just the two of us, the storm outside, the enemies at the gate, the prophecy, all fading into insignificance. I closed my eyes, letting the intensity wash over me, letting myself feel something I had denied for too long. My wolf ached, my heart ached, and yet, in that moment, I felt alive, more alive than ever. His lips hovered near mine, almost touching, and my body tensed, ready to surrender completely. And then a crash from above. The ceiling groaned, splinters falling around us. The alpha's head snapped toward the source, eyes blazing with fury and alarm. Stay behind me, he shouted, his body moving to shield me even as my pulse soared from the interrupted closeness. I stumbled back, heart racing, the moment ripped from us. My body was on fire, my mind reeling from the intensity of what almost happened. And yet I knew it wasn't over. The enemies were closer than ever. And now, the forbidden's passion that had ignited between us was exposed to the world that wanted to tear us apart. My wolf growled low, warning me, begging me, urging me to act. But even in the danger, I felt the pull of him, impossibly strong, undeniable, and consuming. He turned back to me, eyes dark, lips parted as if to continue what we had begun, and yet the threat from above reminded us both. We weren't safe. The moment hung, suspended between desire and peril, a cliffhanger in every sense. And I realized with a shiver that nothing would ever be the same again. Not the bond, not the danger, not us. The forest was alive with chaos. Branches snapped under. Enormous force, leaves whirling like angry sparks in the moonlight. The sounds of snarls, claws, and growls echoed through the night, rattling my heart and twisting my stomach into knots. And in the middle of it all, he stood alpha, predator, protector. I followed him blindly at first, driven by fear and desire both. Every step was a pulse of adrenaline through my veins, every instinct screaming danger. But then, a shadow struck. A figure I hadn't seen before lunged from the trees, teeth bared. He intercepted it immediately, claws flashing in the dim light. But in that instant, I saw something I didn't expect. A hesitation. Not in the enemy, but in him. The hesitation was enough. I screamed as the shadow lunged past him, ripping at my sleeve. My wolf flared inside me, urging fight, urging survival. He grabbed my arm, pulling me close, and I realized then how close. We had become how bound by blood, fire, and unspoken emotion we were. But the chaos, the intensity of the attack, and the half-truths he still held created a wedge I couldn't ignore. "Why didn't you tell me?" I shouted, voice raw, struggling against the panic that gripped me. Why keep me in the dark? Why bring me into this nightmare without the full truth? He growled low, tense, eyes dark. "I told you enough. You asked me to trust me." "I can't trust half-truths," I snapped, stepping back, shaking. "You lied to me. You hid things I had the right to know." He exhaled sharply, frustration coiling around him. "I'm trying to protect you. Every step I've taken, every lie I've withheld. It was for your safety." But words couldn't calm the chaos raging inside me. The forest was collapsing around us. Shadows lunged from every side, teeth flashing, claws tearing at the earth. I could feel his heartbeat, fierce and wild. Yet every heartbeat also echoed betrayal. I wanted to scream at him, accuse him, push him away. And in that moment, the need to survive clashed violently with the forbidden attraction that had been pulling us together since the first glance. The enemy surged again, and he leapt in front of me, protecting me instinctively. His claws tore into one shadow, but another surged forward from the darkness. My heart raced, not just with fear, but with fury, hurt, and the ache of betrayal. "I don't know if I can do this with you," I yelled, tears stinging my eyes. "I can't follow you blindly anymore." He froze mid-strike, eyes wide, jaw tight. "You think I want you to?" he shouted, voice breaking over the growls of battle. "You think I enjoy keeping this from you?" The enemy pressed harder, their teeth and claws closing in. He shielded me with every ounce of strength, and I felt the heat of him, the magnetic force I had tried to resist. But the wedge between us, fear, anger, mistrust, was too strong in that instant. I tore myself from his side, stumbling backward. I can't," I whispered, voice shaking with a mixture of fear and heartbreak. "Don't leave me." He growled, but I did. I ran blindly through the forest, heart pounding, wolf screaming inside me to fight, to survive, to run. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see him, not when betrayal and desperation twisted my chest so tight it hurt to breathe. Behind me, I could hear him calling my name, growling, pleading, that the sound only twisted the pain tighter. Every step I took carried me further from him, and closer to the unknown. I stumbled into a clearing, breathing hard, sweat mixing with tears on my face. The moonlight shimmered over the grass, calm and serene in stark contrast to the chaos behind me. But the serenity was false. I could still hear the battle, the growls, the snarls, the sounds of claws tearing through the forest. I realized, with a sharp pang, that the Alpha was still out there, still fighting for me, still risking everything. And yet, I couldn't go back. Not now. Not with the anger, the hurt, and the mistrust still thrumming in my veins. I sank to the ground, trembling. My wolf whimpered, pacing beneath the skin that contained it, urging me to action, to fight, to return. But my human heart was shattered. He had saved me countless times. He had protected me from enemies I didn't even know existed. Yet, in that moment, I felt abandoned not by the battle, but by the secrets that had kept him distant, the lies that had kept me in the dark. Hours passed. Or minutes. I didn't know. The forest seemed endless. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of branches made me jump. I didn't know if he was near. I didn't know if he was alive. And in the pit of my chest, a cold certainty settled. Something fundamental had broken between us. I had trusted him. I had leaned into him. And yet, despite the attraction that burned hotter than fire, mistrust had forced me away. I wanted to scream, to call his name, to throw myself into his arms. But the fear of the unknown, the betrayal, of half-truths, and the pain of separation kept me rooted in the clearing, shivering and alone. The Alpha had given everything to protect me, and I had walked away. I realized then, bitter and aching, this was the breaking point. Not the battle outside, not the enemies closing in, not even the prophecy that bound me to him. The breaking point was us. And as I lay there, trembling, tears streaming down my face, I knew with terrifying clarity that the pain of this separation would haunt both of us, and the forest itself would not be enough to protect either of us from what came next. The forest had never felt so suffocating. Every shadow loomed like a predator. Every whisper of wind carried a warning. I ran blindly, my breaths ragged, my body shaking from adrenaline and fear. The Alpha's voice still echoed in my mind, calling me back, pleading with me to trust. But I couldn't. Not after the fracture, not after the betrayal I felt in my heart. I was alone. I stumbled over roots and rocks, skin scraped, hands bleeding, but I couldn't stop. The wolves, the hunters, the creatures of the night, they were still out there. I could feel their presence, closing in, as though the darkness itself was alive, watching, hunting. The tears I had fought to hold back spilled freely now. Rage, fear, and heartbreak collided in my chest, making my vision blur. I wanted to scream, to call out his name, to let him find me. But pride and pain rooted me to the moment. I was alone. Hours passed, though time felt suspended. My legs ached, my lungs burned, and the forest around me seemed endless. The moon was hidden behind thick clouds, leaving only shadows to guide me or mislead me. I collapsed beside a stream, the water cold on my palms. My reflection stared back at me pale, tear-streaked, exhausted. I barely recognized the girl in the mirror. She was no longer the naive human I had been, but not yet the warrior my bloodline demanded I become. And I wondered, could I survive this? A whisper of movement made me snap my head up. Something slithered between the trees, silent, predatory. My wolf growled beneath my skin, fierce and urgent. I wanted to run, but my legs refused. From the shadows, A figure emerged, not human, not fully wolf, but something in between. My heart thudded painfully against my chest. Fear coiled in my stomach, icy and relentless. "You shouldn't be here," the figure hissed. "The forest, it does not forgive." "I don't care anymore," I whispered, voice barely audible. "I'm not running." The figure tilted its head. Bold or foolish, I felt a surge of defiance. Alone, hunted, desperate, I realized that survival wasn't just about escaping. It was about facing what I feared, about standing against the darkness instead of letting it consume me. My wolf pressed against my ribs, urging me to act, to rise. The fire inside me, long dormant, began to flicker. I swallowed hard. If I survive this night, it will be on my terms, not theirs. The figure in the shadows circled me, silent, assessing, predatory. And then, almost imperceptibly, it nodded. "Perhaps there is strength yet in your blood. Perhaps." The voice trailed off into the wind, leaving only uncertainty behind. A shiver ran through me. A cryptic clue, a hint, a possibility, but not a promise. I didn't know if it was friend or foe, warning or test. But in that uncertainty, a faint spark ignited inside me. Hope. I pressed forward along the stream, water slicking my shoes, branches whipping against my face. I felt fear claw at me relentlessly, but I also felt determination grow. Every step, every heartbeat reminded me I couldn't give in. Not to fear, not to despair. The forest seemed endless, oppressive, and yet I sensed a path, faint and twisted, leading me deeper into the unknown. I didn't know where it led, or if it led to safety, but it was movement. And movement was life. At some point, exhaustion took over, and I fell to my knees, panting, hands gripping the earth. I pressed my forehead to the ground and whispered to the night, to the forest, to myself. I will not die here. I will not give up. I will fight. And I will find the truth, no matter what it costs. The wind responded, rustling through the trees, carrying a faint echo of a voice I couldn't place. A whisper? A warning? Or perhaps a message from the Alpha himself, guiding me silently through the darkness. I stood unsteady and took a deep, shivering breath. The forest no longer seemed just hostile. It seemed alive, testing me, shaping me, forcing me to confront the raw core of who I was. And I realized I couldn't rely on anyone else, not completely. Not until I understood my own strength, my own blood, my own destiny. The enemies were still out there, waiting, watching. The Alpha was fighting, no doubt, but I couldn't let his battles dictate my survival anymore. I had to reclaim my agency, my life, my power. A faint glimmer caught my eye, a reflection on a branch, moonlight slicing through the clouds. It was small, insignificant, but it drew me. I approached cautiously. The glimmer revealed a mark etched into the bark of a tree. An old symbol I didn't fully recognize, but my grandmother's voice echoed in my mind. The bloodline carries a sign, one that will guide her in the dark. Hope flared. A cryptic clue, yes, but it was a spark, something I could follow. I pressed my palm against the symbol, feeling a faint pulse under my fingers, like the heartbeat of the forest itself. Alone, hunted and trembling, I smiled faintly through the fear and exhaustion. If the forest had tested me, I had survived. If the darkness had sought to consume me, I had endured. And if this was only the beginning, I knew one thing: I would not give in to fear. Not now. Not ever. A faint spark of hope, small, fragile, almost imperceptible, was enough to guide me forward into the abyss, and I would follow it. The forest was quieter now, almost eerily so after hours of running, stumbling, and hiding. I had emerged from the dense underbrush into a clearing bathed in pale moonlight. The exhaustion in my muscles screamed at me to collapse. But something deeper, something primal kept me moving. And then I saw him. He was standing at the edge of the clearing, motionless, eyes scanning the darkness. Even from a distance, I could see the tension in his posture, the tightness of his jaw, the fire in his eyes. He looked human, yet more than that. Powerful, dangerous, commanding. My breath caught. He turned slightly, and our gazes locked. The world seemed to shrink until it existed only for the two of us. "Stay back," I whispered. Though my voice trembled, "I could say the same to you," he replied, voice low, controlled, but with a raw edge I couldn't ignore. We circled each other warily, the space between us charged with the memories of everything that had happened. The danger, the separation, the betrayal, the fight for survival. My chest ached, but I couldn't stop myself from looking at him, drinking in the details of his face, the curve of his shoulders, the power coiled beneath his skin. "You shouldn't have come here," I said finally, voice harsh despite the tremor. "It's too dangerous. For both of us." "And yet I did," he said simply, "because I can't stay away from you. Not now. Not ever." I wanted to scream, to run, to push him away. That the pull between us was stronger than fear, stronger than anger. My wolf pressed beneath my skin, hungry, restless, urging me to move closer, to surrender, to trust. "You don't understand," I said, trying to sound firm. "I've seen what happens when I get close. I can't keep risking everything." "I do understand," he said quietly, stepping closer, eyes locked on mine. "I've lost you before tonight. I can't lose you again. Not to fear, not to the world, not to myself." We stopped near feet apart, the tension almost unbearable. His presence was overwhelming power, danger and desire wrapped together, magnetic and impossible to resist. I wanted to step forward, wanted to lean into him, wanted to feel the warmth of his protection and the pull of his bond, but mistrust still burned inside me. "You kept things from me," I whispered. "You lied." "I lied to protect you," he said firmly, the intensity in his gaze unwavering. "And I will do it again if I must. But I will never leave you. Not willingly." The words hit me harder than any claw, more dangerous than any predator outside the forest. I swallowed hard. "And yet, I don't know if I can trust you. After everything, after all the secrets." He exhaled, jaw tightening. Then, almost gently, he reached for my hand. My heart stuttered. I wanted to pull away, but my fingers brushed against his, and the connection was instant, electric, undeniable. "You don't have to trust me fully," he murmured. "Not yet. But I need you to trust this moment." I looked into his eyes, searching, questioning, trying to read the truth buried in the depths of his soul. And for a heartbeat, I saw it something raw, unguarded, real. Vulnerability hidden beneath the alpha, the predator, the protector. Slowly, almost reluctantly, I let my hand rest in his. His warmth flowed into me, steadying, calming, yet igniting every nerve along the way. "We're both scarred," I whispered. "By tonight, by everything. Can we even find our way back?" He squeezed my hand lightly. "We will, but it won't be easy. Not after the darkness, not after the separation. We have to choose each other. Every day." I felt my wolf stir beneath the surface, fierce and insistent. My heart responded in kind. Every instinct screamed yes, yes, yes. A sudden noise, a branch snapping, distant but deliberate, made us both tense. Danger was still out there, still lurking, still hunting. But in that moment, the world felt smaller, less threatening, because we were together. You swear? I asked, voice trembling. I swear, he said, dark and steady, his gaze locked on mine. I will never let anything come between us. Not enemies, not fear, not even the secrets I must keep. I swear it. The vow made my chest tighten. I wanted to believe him. I needed to. I nodded slowly, letting the tension melt just enough to allow a fragile trust to take root. Then I'll choose you, I said, words barely audible, but carrying all the weight of my fear, my longing and my hope. He smiled faintly, just enough to soften the harsh lines of his face, and pulled me into a careful embrace. Not too close, not too intimate, just close enough to feel the rhythm of his heartbeat against mine. Close enough to know he was real, alive, and here. We stood together in the clearing, shadows wrapping around us like a protective cloak. Words were unnecessary. We had survived. We had endured. And for now, that was enough. But the vow hung between us. Unspoken but understood. We would face the darkness together, no matter the cost. And though the forest still held dangers, though the enemies had not vanished, though the future was uncertain and fraught with peril, for the first time since the breaking point, hope flared in my chest. A spark of trust, a spark of love, a spark of destiny. The moon broke through the clouds, casting silver light across the clearing. His hand tightened gently around mine, and I knew in that moment that whatever came next, we would face it as one. A pact, a promise, a bond forged in shadow and survival. And though the night was far from over, and the dangers outside waited, the pull between us was stronger than ever, unbroken, undeniable and unyielding. The forest was silent before the storm. I could feel it in the air tense, charged like the world was holding its breath. The moon hung low, casting long shadows that twisted across the ground. Every leaf, every whisper of wind, every snap of a twig felt amplified, a warning that something unimaginable was coming. And I knew, this was it, the final hunt. The alpha moved beside me, quiet, alert, every muscle coiled like a spring. His presence was a shield and a spark all at once. My heartbeat matched his, the rhythm of our shared bond echoing through me. Steady, fierce, unstoppable. You feel it too, he murmured, eyes scanning the darkness. I nodded, gripping his arm. It's close, I can sense it. He exhaled slowly, his jaw tight. It's not just close. It's watching us, waiting for the right moment to strike. We moved as one through the forest, silent and deliberate. Every step was a careful calculation, every breath measured. The shadows themselves seemed alive, moving around us, whispering secrets we didn't fully understand. Then I saw it. A pale figure emerging from the mist, taller than any human should be, eyes burning with malice and hunger. A rival unlike any we had faced before. Its presence radiated danger, older and more cunning than anything I had imagined. The one who hunts us, the alpha whispered, voice low and sharp. The one who wants your blood, your power, and everything we protect.